Good evening. I'm Makiba McCreary, Chief of Learning and Community Engagement, and I'm happy to share that this will be our second year honoring Indigenous Peoples Day. And while we can't be in person like we were last year, we still want to celebrate this day with you. Founded in 1870, the Museum of Fine Arts Boston stands on the historic homelands of the Massachusett people, a site which has long served as a place of meeting and exchange among different nations. Indigenous Peoples Day at the MFA recognizes the heritage of Native Americans and the histories of their nations and communities, promoting the artistry of Indigenous peoples in Greater Boston and New England. As a museum, we acknowledge the long history of the land that we occupy today, and we seek many ways to make these narratives more prominent and visible within our galleries. The MFA is thrilled to share that we have reopened and are happy to invite visitors to enjoy the Art of America's Wing and special exhibitions, Women Take the Floor and Black Histories, Black Futures. This evening, you will learn more about our response to the Cyrus Dallin's appeal to the Great Spirit, enjoy highlights from last year's Indigenous Peoples Day, and hear 2 spotlight talks on works from our collection. Thank you to all of the artists, performers, educators, and community leaders who partnered with us to make this evening possible. We are grateful for your participation.
Cha, wanikisak, natasuis Tess Lukey, nu tomas Aquinna. Hi, good day. My name is Tess Lukey, and I am a Quinna Wampanoag and the Curatorial Research Associate in the Art of the Americas Department. Something near and dear to my heart has always been New England. Many things come to mind when you say, I am a New Englander. For me, that means not only have I lived in New England my whole life, but that I come from this land. My ancestors came from this land. Being Indigenous in New England means different things than it does elsewhere in the United States. To many, the lack of Indigenous representation and overt erasure throughout New England seems apparent, whether it is in public education or institutions. What those people do not realize is that New England, and Massachusetts specifically, is Indigenous. Your street names, your town names, lakes, rivers, oceans, all of those familiar sounds came from the Algonquian peoples that have called this land home since time immemorial. I am New England to the core. Growing up away from my community as a child was hard, as it is located on Martha's Vineyard. I often turned to those places that felt like home away from home when I couldn't get there. Many times, I achieved that through visiting objects at local area museums such as the MFA. I am proud to say that community is so much a part of who I am, and it is so much a part of who the MFA is. Like I am a part of my Indigenous community, I am also now a part of the MFA community, and I am dedicated to honoring the Indigenous people whose land we are situated on, as well as to bringing Native voices and perspectives to the MFA. It is my privilege to welcome you today for this celebration. Katapatanamu, thank you, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day.
Hello, my name is Leah Bermeo. I am the Kristin and Roger Servison Associate Curator of Paintings in the Art of the Americas Department here at the MFA. As part of our celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day, I will be sharing some thoughts on our ongoing discussions about Cyrus Dallin's sculpture, Appeal to the Great Spirit. This bronze figure, mounted on a horse and wearing a feathered headdress, appears to be a Native American man from the Great Plains. So why is he here in Boston, in front of the MFA? In 1912, the leaders of the museum installed this sculpture at the Huntington Avenue entrance. While they hoped to support Dallin, who was then a local contemporary artist, they did not intend for the sculpture to remain in front of the building permanently. Nonetheless, it has stood there ever since, and become a beloved icon of the MFA for generations of visitors. Yet for others, it represents a painful stereotype. While many public sculptures commemorate specific military heroes or events, this Indigenous figure is anonymous and unarmed. Apart from any community and wearing an amalgamation of regalia, a Lakota-style headdress, a necklace imitating Dene or Navajo squash blossom jewelry, moccasins that are not from any recognizable community, he does not represent actual Indigenous peoples living in the early 20th century, but rather a vision of indigeneity made by a white artist for white audiences. As stewards of this work of art, we now reckon with its complicated history. And we have increasingly looked beyond our walls to the community members who live with this sculpture in public space to help us tell its many stories. During our inaugural Indigenous Peoples Day event last year, we invited Indigenous artists, scholars, and community members, as well as some non-Native experts on Dallin, to answer the question, what do you see when you look at Appeal to the Great Spirit? These contributors submitted their responses in advance, and their words were printed on signs that surrounded the sculpture, forming a chorus of different voices and perspectives. All of our visitors to the museum on Indigenous Peoples Day also had the opportunity to respond to the question. While one person told us, quote, "I see a proud and defiant man ready to fight for his people and his culture," another wrote, quote, "It tells me that the museum isn't for Native people like me, but for white people and their false impressions of reality." We did not reach out and ask for these reflections just so that our community members could voice their opinions on one day of the year, Indigenous Peoples Day. Instead, we are actively using this feedback to inform how we contextualize, interpret, and publicly present this sculpture, to help us think through how museums like ours have the responsibility to confront stereotypes in art and to acknowledge that creative images can have very real negative consequences, and also to sharply distinguish representations like Dallin's from self-representations by Indigenous artists. We know that re-examining the narratives of Appeal to the Great Spirit also means that we must deepen our commitment to increasing the visibility of Indigenous artists who tell their own stories. When you return to the newly reopened MFA, you will see that Appeal to the Great Spirit now has a small sign in front of it. Even though the sculpture has stood outside of the museum for over 100 years, this is the first time that we have written and displayed an interpretive label for it. This label attempts to raise questions about the sculpture, to make the familiar unfamiliar, and because the full story could never fit in such a short text, it includes a QR code, which you can scan to learn more. Both the new label and the description of Appeal to the Great Spirit on MFA.org were informed by conversations with our visitors and Native Thought partners, and they represent modest moves toward more ambitious interpretations and activations of the sculpture in the future. As one of the few objects in our collection that has never rotated, we are thinking deeply about ways to recontextualize, destabilize, or otherwise shift our understanding and experiences of it. And we are considering both digital and visual interventions. And because this initiative is very much a work in progress, we invite you to add your voice to this discussion, sharing your thoughts, questions, and comments with our curatorial team by emailing us at artoftheamericas@mfa.org or connecting with us on Instagram @AmericasMFA, where Appeal to the Great Spirit is featured in our story highlights. We hope to hear from you and to see you both outside and inside of the museum soon.
Cha, Wanikisak, Natasuis Tess Lukey, Nu Thomas Aquinahanat. Hi, good day. My name is Tess Lukey, and I am a Quinna Wampanog and the Curatorial Research Associate in the Art of the Americas Department. Katapatash, thank you for coming to my Spotlight Talk today. I'm in the gallery to introduce you all to this beautiful southwestern pot made by one of the most well-known 19th century two-spirit potters, Arroh-ah-och. I want to take a minute for you to get a close look at this vessel, as it really is remarkable in its decorative quality. The designs that you can see on the surface of the olla range from quatrefoils, here, capped spirals, here, and abstract feather motifs, here, to cross-hatching, here. A defining feature of her work and many decorative southwestern ceramics is the spirit break. A spirit break is the disruption of the continuous line on the shoulder of this jar, and is a visual representation of a sipapu, the place of emergence and origin of the Laguna people. All of these painted designs were created with a yucca brush and materials such as colored clay and Rocky Mountain beeweed that were derived from the land in New Mexico, where the Laguna Pueblo is located. Now, I used a term before that many of you watching may not be familiar with, two-spirit. There are many definitions and understandings of what is Two-Spirit, and each of them is nation-specific. The term first came into use as a way to bridge Western and non-Western understandings of gender and sexual diversity among Indigenous people. The most common parallel to the Two-Spirit role is someone who is non-binary or transgender. Arroh-ah-och was a Kukimu potter born of the Roadrunner clan from the Laguna Pueblo. As a Two-Spirit individual, Arroh-ah-och held the sacred role of both a man and a woman within their community. Indigenous Peoples Day is an opportunity to celebrate the diversity of our community that has been historically underserved and systematically erased. It is also an opportunity to celebrate the diversity within Indigenous communities themselves. Arroh-ah-och is only one historic Two-Spirit individual among many. As an Indigenous New Englander, on this day, I hope that we are able to recognize and celebrate the continued endurance of Indigenous peoples across the globe. We recognize that without the diversity that Indigenous cultures bring, the world would be a less artful place. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day.
Hafa Adai, Na'an Husi Marina Takeko. Hello, my name is Marina Takeko, and I am a curatorial assistant in the Department of Contemporary Art. Today, I am going to discuss this piece, Wendy Red Star's Apsáalooke Feminist No. 1 from 2016, which is on view in the exhibition Women Take the Floor. Wendy Red Star is an interdisciplinary artist currently based in Portland, Oregon. She was born in 1981 and grew up in Montana near her Crow Indian Reservation. Her art practice is multimedia and research-based, exploring U.S. history, culture, and her Crow identity in expansive ways. Red Star recently had a mid-career retrospective at the Newark Museum. Her work has been featured in many major museums. Apsáalooke Feminist No. 1 is a large-scale digital photograph which features Red Star and her daughter Beatrice. They are dressed in their Crow regalia, including elk-tooth dresses, embroidered shawls, and beaded bags, headbands, and shoes. Crow women are known for making very elaborate beadwork, including geometric patterns and floral forms. Red Star and Beatrice's clothing is full of texture and vibrant color, which could not be appreciated from a black and white photograph. The piece was photographed using a self-timer in their living room. Red Star sits on a white couch from IKEA, covered in patterned blankets from Pendleton, while her daughter stands beside her. Unlike their couch, which could be in anyone's home, their styling is highly specific to their Crow or Apsáalooke culture. It is a matrilineal culture, meaning that kinship is traced through the mother or female relatives' lines. The transmission and sharing of culture through women is echoed by Red Star's incorporation of her daughter into her artistic practice. Beatrice collaborates with Red Star on many projects, including this photo series. By titling the series Apsáalooke Feminist, Red Star presents an Indigenous sense of feminism based on empowerment and deep connection to her Crow culture. Moving beyond the figures, the background of this photograph, which was added through photo editing, is a dizzying pattern of white, red, tan, and black. The floor is a similarly colored abstract pattern. Despite this dazzling background, Red Star and Beatrice remain the focus of the photograph, mainly through their eyes, which look straight out to viewers. Together, they present a contemporary, self-aware portrait of Apsáalooke women, which contrasts popular representations of Native Americans that tend to romanticize a historic past rather than showcase a vibrant present. You can see this work and many others by phenomenal women artists in the exhibition Women Take the Floor, on view until May 2nd, 2021. Go to the MFA.org to reserve your time tickets today. Sajus Masay, thank you, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day.